Wow. Room went silent just like that. Well, folks, my name is Gary Green, and I'm one of the people who do the programming for the festivals and other events throughout the year. And on behalf of the board and the program committee of the St. John's Storytelling Festival, I'd like to welcome you all here this evening, those in the audience and those who are joining us online. And I understand we're casting a wide net this time around. I think the furthest west I've heard anybody watching us has been Winnipeg, and the furthest east has been Malta. On the other side. So we're going to change the name next year to the International Festival or something like that, right? And have it go like that. So my job is to do a little bit of housekeeping for the evening. And first off is to let you know, should an emergency happen, there is an exit through that door there, up a little set of stairs, and you're out. And that exit, of course, will take you back out to the way you came in. And washrooms, which are critical, are just out here this way. And they're identified out there as ones with stalls only and ones with stalls and urinals. So you can pick your choice onto that, but it is not labeled otherwise. So there you go. A couple of other little things I need to mention. There will be an intermission halfway through. The bar will be open, and it has an assortment of alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages to which you may enjoy during the break, and you can bring it back to your seat with you afterwards. There is a table outside with some merchandise from sort of tellers and the St. John's Storytelling Festival people, and you can browse that, and people will be there to sell that to you. If you get inspired by the people tonight, or anybody else you've seen in the festival, and you'd say, dang, I'd like to be able to do that, then you're in luck. Because starting Monday coming up on the 20th, for 4 Monday nights, we're going to be running an introduction to storytelling and story performance. And so you can come along and learn how to pick out good stories to tell, learn them, and how to present them on stage. So you can do that, and information about that is online, and you can go and sign up for that if you so choose. Oh yes, the prompter here is making sure that we can turn off your cell phones, please, or put them on silent or something. If you are like me and a person who is hearing impaired and uses your phone to go to your hearing aids and adjust them and stuff, well, obviously you need to do that, but if you can at least put it on silent, then that'd be great. So if anybody notices me lighting up, because I have visual cues on my phone, so if you see a flash in the room, it's not some miracle happening, it's my phone as I'm adjusting it to hear other people speak and so on. So speaking of other people speaking, it's a great pleasure for me to introduce the host for tonight. And Joe Goudie needs probably no introduction to most of the room, but I will go through that for the benefit of our online people in Malta and across the country who may not be as familiar. So Joe Goudie is one of the revered elders of Labrador. He was born in Mud Lake and moved into Goose Bay sometime thereafter, and has had a varied and storied career as an administrator in municipal levels, an elected member of the House of Assembly, and since that he has gone on to go back and do work within the community being the Indigenous liaison person with the Air Force, with the Canadian Air Force, Royal Canadian Air Force. And in his active retirement, he has been teaching people how to build wooden canoes, wooden canvas canoes, and takes people on little expeditions down the odd river or two in doing that. So I would ask you please to welcome Joe Goudie to the stage.
Thank you very much. And I should tell you that I should have a lot better sense than drive from Goose Bay to St. John in 2.5 friggin' days. Not good, not good. But anyway, I'm here and we're hoping to have some fun tonight. Welcome everyone. The only other time I was in the LSPU hall, it was a long time ago, back in the 70s maybe. The late Gerald Mitchell had released an album of music, his first one, and I guess he was invited, hired or whatever, to come and do some performing. And I had just been elected, so it had to be, 75, 76. And I produced his 2 albums that he released and loved the songs, just like a good story. Good song is good stuff, right? And here am I sitting in the audience, tears coming down my eyes, listening to the Labrador songs. Not suggesting there should be tears tonight. There will be some stories. But before we get to that, I need to just do a couple of things here on behalf of the show, the festival is taking place. The sponsors, partners, and funders. The funders are Canada Council for the Arts. I don't know what all of the abbreviations are, but BCAH, Arts NL, City of St. John's, and CEDP. Our sponsors are Perfect Day and Phonomed. Our partners are Cupid's Legacy Center, AC Hunter Library, The Rooms, The Ship Inn, Newfoundland Folk Arts Society, and the Cox and Palmer Second Space. We appreciate, of course, all of the input that they've had. Otherwise, you and I wouldn't be here tonight, and hopefully going to enjoy the stories coming out. I've been told that I should start with a story. I wasn't quite sure what I should talk about, but when I was introduced, there was reference to cedar and canvas canoes. Patty knows what that's all about. Having paddled how many times? 2, 3 times? Twice down the river. And did well too. She's a good paddler and a good cook.
Good cook, sure.
Yeah, always important person to be on a trip. I'm not going to say any more, Pat. That's it. I'm not going to say any more. But I want to tell you about something that happened in my canoe shop a few years ago that had nothing to do with the building of canoes. I was at 123 Hamilton River Road, probably 4:30 in the afternoon, bright Labrador sunny day. And the door was open to let some fresh air in. As you can appreciate working with cedar, there's a lot of dust. And didn't wear my mask quite as often as I should have, but that's all done with now. And the door was open, and I was working on a canoe on the ribs, and a shadow fell across, so I looked up, and there was this tall man standing in the doorway. He had a bushy white hair, and I had never seen the man before. And he started out by saying, I've come home for a while, to do some research on family history and roots, and I'm going to do a little write-up for my family when I get all of this done. He said, do you know anything about the Leonidas Hubbard and Minor Hubbard canoe trips from Northwest River to George River Folks? Have any of you, Dave, of course, is familiar with it. Anyway, it's about a 600 and some odd mile canoe trip over some of the roughest water that God ever created, I think, and put in Labrador at least. But it's a great trip also. Anyway, I said, well, you know, I read the books, and one of the guides involved with both Hubbards in the first instance, with Leonidas after he's passed away, Uncle Bert Blake and Uncle Alan Goudie actually were two of the four men who went in to look for Wallace and to get, they didn't know that Hubbard had passed, but when they got there, they certainly found out. Anyway, I know that, and I know a little bit about the Mina Hubbard story, because Uncle Bert was one of her guides. And he said, I said, why do you ask? Well, he said, do you remember when George Elson left the Susan River, Wallace went so far, and they were walking in maybe 2 feet of snow and hadn't had a decent meal in a month or more. So they were wasted and almost finished. Anyway, Elson decided, or they decided, the best thing to do would be to allow George Elson, the guide, to make his way as best he could to Northwest River to get help and get Wallace and Hubbard out of the country. And Hubbard gave Elson his revolver he had, and on the way out that day, Wallace had to give it up. He couldn't go very far. Elson shot 7 spruce partridge. Now, when a man is hungry, that's make you a half-decent meal, I'd say 7 of them. And he was looking, he got to the Susan River, which is where they had gone up by mistake. They were looking for the Nisqually. And he had to put some logs together, drift across, because he had to go down the west shore of Grand Lake. And he got across that, got pretty wet, but he made it. And walked some more, and then he came to the Beaver River, had to do the same thing again. And it was getting duckish in the evening when he thought, okay, I gotta find a place where I can make a fire and barricade for the night. And he was looking around, didn't like the place where he was standing very much, wasn't satisfactory to him. So he thought he'd walk around Willow Point and see if there was a better place there. And when he walked around to Willow Point, he heard a baby cry. Baby, out here. And he got his wits together, I guess, and there was a log home there with a kerosene lamp lit in the window, and people inside, obviously, and there was a baby crying. And the man who was talking to me said, I was that baby. His name was Don Blake, and the Blake family left the Northwest River Grand Lake area not that long afterwards. I guess they moved to British Columbia. And he had just come in from BC to do some research and put together some information for the little document he was writing. Anyway, there's the story they asked me to tell. Now, we're going to put my program, which first talker, I guess. Yes. Okay. We have 3 different storytellers this evening. And we're going to begin with the lady who has agreed to start the evening off here. Amelia Reimer, who is sitting here on my right, holding the drum, has been involved in the St. John storytelling community. You probably know her a lot better than I do, for over 10 years. She originally hails from the Pacific Northwest and has been lovingly referred to as a Bay Girl from a different coast. Not a bad title. Amelia has spent her adult life as a voice for Indigenous rights throughout both Canada and the US. By the way, you can hear okay?
Yeah.
Okay. She is of mixed settler and Métis ancestry, and so am I. Amelia has 2 adult Makah children and carries many teachings from her time spent with a wide variety of Indigenous groups. Please welcome Amelia.
Thank you so much. Were any of you here the night before last?
Yeah.
Excellent. I gave the land acknowledgement that time. I'm so happy to be here again. Once again, my name is Amelia Reimer, and I do hail from the Pacific Northwest, little outport areas near Port Angeles, Washington, which is right across from Victoria, BC. And my first husband and my children, who are all Makah tribal members, are from Nia Bay on the Makah Reserve on the most northwest tip of the continental US there, which is just right across from Vancouver Island, people of Nitnet, or Nitchellbluth. I was thinking what I should tell you tonight for stories, and I was thinking maybe I should start with the one right on my face, is of my traditional chin tattoo. This comes from my elder, Moki Yanes. Other people call her Susie. And she'd been trying to convince me, her and her daughter, who I went to school with, tried to convince me to get this tattoo for the last 25, 30 years. And I kept saying, no, not time. I was worried if I'd get a job, these sort of things. And 3 years ago, I finally said yes. It was a big change in my life, and I was ready for a new chapter. Now, one of the things that comes with the tattoo is I don't get to see it before I agree to it. I'm getting a design on my face, sight unseen. So I'm trusting this elder with my face. Each tattoo is unique. No two are the same in her family's tradition. And she is from the family of Marie Mason Potts, for those that know their Northern California tribes of Mountain Maidu. This particular chin tattoo is the story of the roundhouse. And the roundhouse is where ceremony is held, singing, dancing, drumming, praying. And so for the tattoo, I'm going to try to talk into the mic so people online can hear me, but also I can show you. So the lines on either side of my mouth, on my chin, are the outer walls of the roundhouse. If people can see. So these are the outer walls. Inside the roundhouse, we have the sacred fire at the bottom. And up at the top, it's hard to see, there's little dots for the moon and the stars. And the little dots in the middle are for the men and women dancers. When we are in the roundhouse, we are in ceremony, singing, dancing, drumming, praying. And so the story that goes with the roundhouse is a reminder when we are singing, dancing, drumming, praying, and the word in that for the Makah is duduk, nice and easy word. But when we're in ceremony, we're literally connecting heaven and earth. So that's the story of my chin tattoo. I was thinking about a variety of stories tonight, and listening to Joe talking about getting people crying. I don't know. I probably will make you cry at some point. Just warning, have tissue. But I might save that for the second half. I might make you cry then. So the first one I'll start with is the story of Ishkis, who is also known as Basket Woman or Wild Woman. And she could also very well be described as a female Sasquatch. So she lived off in the woods by herself, But children are brought up from day one to told they better come home by dark or Ishkas will get them. And with that, children do not go out after dark without being escorted by a parent. And if they do go out, they're in trouble. So one day, so one day Sam Mary was a little girl and she did go berry picking. And she was enjoying going. She brought some of her cousins along and they were out having so much fun with the berry patches. One more patch, one more patch. It's starting to get a little dark. Just one more berry. There's a really ripe set over there. And before they know it, it is after dark and they haven't gotten home. And who do they run into? Basket woman, Ishkas is her name. So Ishkas is tall, 10-foot tall woman, long scraggly hair and just ugly face and smells. Oh my goodness, she smells. You smell her before you see her if you're downwind. And she's called Basket Woman because she carries a large woven cedar bark basket on her back with a tump line. So it comes across her forehead to hold the basket behind her. And she's known that when she finds children out after dark, she scoops them up, puts them in her basket, seals their eyes with pitch, and then takes them home to eat them. Or something, because we never hear from them again. So when the children are trying to make their way home, it is on dark, and they run into Ishkas. Of course they do. Parents are always right. And they're scared. They're very scared. Here's this large woman, Ishkas, they've been warned about. And she talks to them and says, oh, they've got it all wrong. I'm not that bad. I'm so kind. I'm so sweet. You know what we can do? I'll put you in my basket and take you back home to the village. And then everyone can see that I'm not as bad as they say. And the children are like, not sure, but they don't know how else they're going to get back. So they agree to go to get put into the basket on Basket Woman's back. And she says, now, I apologize, but I can't, in case the villagers aren't ready to be friendly to me, I can't let you know where I live. So I do need to seal your eyes with pitch. And she does. And instead of taking them back to the village, of course, she takes them back to her house. Now, with it being dark and Salmonberry and her cousins aren't home yet, Goudie was there at the hearth, home before dark like you should be. But his mother was so worried and she didn't know what to do because that Salmonberry was her other daughter and these are her nephews and nieces that are missing. And so she asked Goudie to go look for them. Now Goudie is the hero of most macaw stories. He's also known as Clamshell Boy. His mother found him in a clamshell on the beach. So he's, as far as we know, he's not blood related to his family. But he agrees he will go look for Salmonberry and the others. And Goudie goes out. He looks and he tracks through the woods and he goes along and he finds Basket Woman's house with the fire going. And he's worried, but she's out splitting the wood to make her fire bigger outside her house. And he tells her, oh, you are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. I can't get over your beauty. Do you know how beautiful you are? Ishkas is like, whatever. You lie. Everybody tells me I'm ugly and I smell. No, you are absolutely gorgeous. You need to see yourself. Have you ever looked into a pool of water to see your reflection? No. Oh, come, you have to see. Come look over the cliff here and look down into the water and the moonlight will reflect back up and you'll be able to see yourself. And she's curious. She's never had anybody talked like this before. So she creeps up on the side of the cliff near her house, looks way over down into the water. She says, no, I can't see myself. I see nothing. He says, look a little further. You'll be able to see yourself. So she does. And then Goudie pushes her off the cliff, which buys him time to go back to the house. and get the pitch out of Sam and Mary and her cousin's eyes, and to hurry them up home before she finds her way up the cliff in case she didn't die, Ishkas. And so, it's still true. Mom and Dad tell you not to go out after dark, and especially when Grandma and Grandpa tell you. You need to believe them. Ishkas will come get you. How am I for time, Gary? Do a short one? Let's see. I think I'm going to save my drum for the second one, like I said, I'm going to make you cry then. It'll be good. But this drum does carry quite a few stories in it. The tattoo that I have on my arm here is from a dream I had. And before I had it tattooed on, first I drew it on the drum that I'd made it. According to the inside of this drum, I made this in 2015. And one of my nieces, she designed the wolf and the bear for me to go on top of it. But when I did have the dream of this line, I drew it on my arm real quick with a Sharpie and took a picture and texted it to one of my elders back home out west. And he says, okay, that's wolf ceremony. I've been telling you for years that you're a wolf. Do you finally believe me? I was like, maybe, not sure. But I brought it with me on my drum first before I did commit it to my skin. And along with this, we were in ceremony one day at Topsail Beach. We hiked way, way down, almost by the river. And we were around the fire. This little bee, this little honeybee tucks inside my drum outside to get out of the smoke from the fire on a windy day. And that little bee, I was just watching it inside the drum here, paying attention, but then, after a while the bee fell asleep and passed away. And so this was the safe place that bee wanted to end its life. So I doodled a little bee on the side of my drum. So there's so many stories that come around. I've got more for you next set, but I'll leave you with that for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amelia. That's great. Storytelling is an art in itself, isn't it? And I imagine pretty much everyone in the room at some point or other grew up listening to mom or dad or the neighbors or someone coming in. I know when Father came back from the trap line, or brother Horace, I was only a young fellow. I'd crawl in behind the wood stove. Well, not quite behind, a little too hot there, but get close to the wood stove and literally fall asleep listening to them and the neighbors yarning about what the weather was like, what the fur was like. And isn't it a coincidence that the price of fur dropped about 10 days before you got out of the country? Hudson Bay was famous for that, and some other things as well. But anyway, I'll leave that alone. I don't know if I'm supposed to be telling another story now or what. You want another? You're one of the organizers. You want me to tell a story?
Probably bring up your next storyteller.
Get Alec first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. They're not disorganized, I'm the one who's disorganized. I just got here, and I'm not even sure what it's all about yet. But anyway, it's fun, it's always good. And our next speaker is a gentleman who grew up, I presume like a news gentleman, without being upsetting you, sir. Next door to me, on the other side of Mother's garden fence. And as a matter of fact, sisters, Alec, we used to refer to my mother as Grandma. Is that right? Hey?
Stella's here somewhere.
Is Stella here?
Yeah.
Oh, there you are, Stella. Stella gave me a copy of a recipe that I don't know if she or everyone calls them Grandma Goudie's cookies or not, but she did. And they're darn fine cookies. Deb makes a fair number of them now to keep things going in our house. But anyway, friends, neighbors, we've grown up. Ellie came from the north. Mother was a survivor of the Spanish flu. And I'll bet there's some stories there that could be told. Alec has, I know you've written a book and you just recently made arrangements to have it published. Okay. He may wish to say something about it. I don't know much about it, so I won't say any more. But the information that I have here about Alec is, because I know him very well, some of you may not, he's an Inuit elder with Inuit and British ancestry, born in the original hamlet of Davis Inlet in 1940. And I'm proud to say, Alec, I was at the original Davis Inlet.
Good.
With you guys, or some members of your
No, I
family.
remember that in both.
Huh?
I remember that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and the 12 o'clock rock on
Yeah, yeah. that
on
thing
the other
thing.
side, yeah. Sorry, I better get on with this. His aim to be published is to leave a legacy behind for Inuit, Innu, Labradorians, Northerners, and anyone else across Canada and the world who is curious about traditional Inuit life and culture and the adventurous, unconquered spirit of an Inuit man. Alec has 3 manuscripts of creative nonfiction in development, and we'll look forward, sir, to the publication of at least one of them, hopefully all of them. And that'll add to Mother's book, Horace's book, and all of the other books, Dave's. The history of Labrador is slowly, gradually coming out in print, and that can't be anything but good. It's the best that could happen. Anyway, I won't ramble on anymore. Please welcome Alex Saunders. You're the sound person, are you?
Thank you, Dave. I joined the Navy when I was 17 and learned how to drink. And in our house, we had a little wash corner by the kitchen. And not every day, but a lot of days, Mrs. Goudie, Joe's mother, would come over and they would start yarning. My mother, and my father, and Mrs. Goudie. And I loved booze back in those days, but instead of going out drinking, I stayed there in that corner and just listened to them. And you wouldn't believe it. I retained most of what I heard from those people. So that's the basis for a lot of things that I write. Anyway, I quit drinking 50 years ago, so don't worry about it. I want to say that I gotta calm down. Yeah, I was born in Davis Inlet with the Innu. My mother was a half Inuit from Ocock. Her father was an Irishman. And they survived the Spanish flu up there in 1918. Actually, the Palmac family, there were 7 of them that managed to live. I think there was 366 people, I believe, maybe 266, I'm not sure. And out of that, I think 77 lived, not very many. But out of that 77, there were 7 members of our family that survived, so we got good, strong genes. Yeah. So anyway, I grew up a little bit in Davis Inlet, but then my father moved to Goose Bay. And then, of course, when I was young, I went into the Navy, and I really didn't know much about the traditional lifestyle, things that people did up there in the north. And so I wanted to learn. So when I got out of the Navy, I was only home in 3 weeks, I think. I got on the last boat to go to Nain, and I went up to Nain and spent the winter with my Uncle Julius Ford, Paddy's grandfather. Paddy's famous by now. So I wanted to learn things. I was all anxious to learn the culture. You know, I drove dog teams. Me and Paddy's Uncle Wilfred, we went caribou hunting late in April. We had 14 huskies. I don't know how far we traveled, but each day was 20-hour days. And they were hard days too, let me tell you. I thought I was a tough guy, but boy, nothing like the northern people. They're amazing. We got in the country and killed some caribou right away, and we found an igloo that was the Indian had made and used, and they have a little bit of heat in there to boil the kettle and have a cup of tea and cook a bit of food, I guess. And the walls was all smooth, covered with ice. Just enough heat to warm up the air. And that was an amazing experience. I was so taken with that, just surreal. It was a wonderful experience. I'm so glad I did that. And not only sleeping in the igloo, but in the evening and in the morning too, when the sun rose and set, the beautiful sunsets, the blazing red sky, and it was amazing big empty land. It was a great experience. Anyway, we got back home with our caribou and blah blah blah, but I wanted to walk from Nain to Davidson, about 60 miles, and it was late. It was in May, late in May. I know I'm not telling a legend or anything like that, but I'm just talking about my own experience. So I decided to walk from Nain to Davidson, and the first day, well, first night actually, we left 4 o'clock in the morning and walked all day, and I got to a neck, body of land separate 2 bodies of water, right? So I just put on a little fire and rested against a rock and fell asleep. And in the night, I sensed something. I quite didn't know what. But with the glow of the fire, I could see the reflection in something's eyes. So I just took my rifle, which was right by me, and I fired a shot in the air, and they made a yelp and they ran away. And I think it was wolves. On that trek back to Davidson, it took me a week. I was on the outside islands. Maybe Wayne knows where Ayattuks is, Wayne? Where's Wayne to? Right there. You know, Ayattuks are outside, right outside land. And I didn't know much. I was just learning the northern ways. And there was a rock about 30, 40 feet from the shore. And there was a seal on it. So I said, I'm going to shoot that seal for food. So I had a shot and saw the blood, but the seal slid off the rock down into the water. Now this is a great, empty, silent land. And no one knew where I was. Nobody had any idea where I was. I just followed my own heart, just going, because I wanted to go. Anyway, I walked out there around the rock where I had wounded the seal, and I could see through the ice little bubbles was coming up all over the damn place, coming up from the bottom of the ice. And of course, I was stupid, grew up in Goose Bay. I didn't know what it was. And I had an inkling, I better get out of here. So I started to walk towards the shore. And I got maybe 15, 20 feet from the shore. And slowly I went down in the water. The ice was rotten. It was eaten away by the sun in the spring of the year, and the tide had eaten away from the bottom. And I was just walking on really bad ice. And I had my rifle, and there were seals and polar bears all over the place. So I knew I lost a gun. I lost my big gun. That's what I had, my rifle. So I lost that when I fell through the ice. But I could swim. I learned to swim Goose Bay and probably learned to swim around with Joe and his brothers. Joe's brother Chris was a really good friend of mine. He done more drinking you can shake a stick at. But Chris passed on and Chris stole. And I quit. I said, enough of that, so I gave it up. But anyway, I swam in towards the shore and I got into water that was shallow enough that I could break up to the ice, and I did. Then I got ashore and oh, it was terrible. I was just froze. My fingers was, tips of my fingers were blue, purple. And I had to walk maybe, I don't know, maybe a mile to where my tent was. So I stumbled along anyway and fell into a depression. It was a dry depression in the earth, and the sun was just beating down. The sun, spring in Labrador can be very beautiful, beautiful, good weather for actually weeks on end. And so that kind of warmed me up enough to get back to the tent. But I knew I had to have that rifle. If I never had that, I have a little 22, and you wouldn't even dent the height of a polar bear with a bloody 22, let alone kill it. So I had to go back the next day. I had to get that gun. So what I did was I got a whole lot of driftwood, and I made a great big fire. I stripped off and started naked, no one around to see me. And I said, well, I gotta do it. So I walked back out and then swam out. And the gun was about, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 feet down. And like clear water, clear salty water. So I dived down, and the first dive I got the gun. And then I got ashore and stood below the fire, let the heat, the waves wash over my body until I could get some feeling back in myself and walked on to the tent. And I stayed there a couple of days. I saw 3 polar bears one evening. One evening, I saw 3 polar bears at the seals. And I was nervous, but they'll kill you and eat you as they look at you. So anyway, they didn't bother me. So I walked across to Oksuksuik, that's the island that Dave Zimmer was on. And we've had a secret in our family for 5 generations about that area. It's an amazing little place. There's some soapstone in a cliff, big lot of soapstone, they call it freestone. And there's a big harbor, so they call it Freestone Harbor. And in Freestone Harbor, there's got to be thermal activity because the water in the brook, it was more than 6 inches deep, ran all winter long, never ever froze. But we knew where to go to get the fish, the trout. So I stayed there for almost all day, most of the day, and got a whole lot of little small trout, 6, 8 inches long, and killed a couple partridges. And then I climbed up the mountain, but probably 2,000 feet. Oh, geez, that was amazing too. Because up on the top of the mountain, it was like a moonscape. It was clean, not a bit of garbage, no scars on the snow, nothing there, but beautiful nature. And just when I got up there, the evenings was long in the north. Just when I got up there, the sun was sitting down, going down in the west. So I could watch the sunset from up there. And it was beautiful. There was some cloud, just enough to give color to the sky. And Anyway, I camped on the side of that mountain for the night, cold as hell. And the next day, then I got, after breakfast and that, we got ready. I got ready and went on back to Davis Inlet. I only had to walk across the island. It was a big island though. And behind the house in Davis Inlet, there's a wood path. Cut straight up through behind the house. I remember, well, it's 20 years since I was there. But my brother Gerald, he was 3 years older than me, him and I were sliding on sleds, comedies, on a moonlight night, cold as hell in the wintertime. And we weren't allowed to go up the hill too far, because there's danger sliding back down. But Joe knows me well, and he knows I'm not going to listen to that. So I went up the hill, and Gerald was mad at me, shouting at me, and what the hell. So anyway, I come down, zipping down, and ran into a tree. And I knocked myself out. Now here's my cool brother, 7 years old. He put me on the sled. He took me home to mother. My dad was in the country trapping, so mother was home alone with a bunch of boys. He brought me home and he said, open the door. And he said, and he threw me in on the floor. And he said to mother, dead man here, he said. And then he went away. He just left. And my mother said, I was unconscious for 4 or 5 hours before coming around. And a big bruise on my side. But that's nothing compared to the cuts I got on my head. And that's another story. It's another story for later on. So anyway, that's the story about getting to Dayton. You know, yes, because I followed that path when I made my walk back to from Maine to Davis. And Joe said I've written a book, and Patty knows that too. Actually, it's my second book, and one used in schools in Labrador. I just want to read to you what I wrote about my solitary walk from Nain to Davis Inlet and just getting home. So my eyes aren't good, I can't see very good. So I made it back to the house in one piece, but with trepidation in my heart, because I knew my father would not, well, no, he would have a thing or two to say to me about venturing to the outside islands this time of the year. I was right. I walked in the back door and found my mother bending over the wood stove frying caribou meat. She looked up and said, "Where in the world did you come from?" I was badly sunburned, my face was peeling, and my lips were not only peeling, but they were also bleeding. I was probably thinner than when I had set out 4 moon cycles prior, but I felt on top of the world and proudly said, I walked all the way from Nain on the outside run, just to have a look around at the land and to feel the spring open up like a flower, the flowers petal around me, and to get to see or two. And the old man said, "You were on the outside run at this time of the year." I said, "That's not a smart thing to do." Well, I said, "It's what I wanted to do, and I did it." I replied more like a child rather than a 25-year-old man. I had a great trip too. I had it. Got some little brook trout from Freestone Harbor and one spruce partridge. I said, trying hard not to meet his eye. I didn't want to state the obvious that I had not succeeded in getting a seal. "When were you there?" he asked. So I said, "Yesterday," I told him. I climbed the hill up there and then came on back to the valley. I camped on the west side of the mountain last night and came on through this morning. I brought my toboggan, I forgot to tell you that. I brought my toboggan coming down the wood path not long ago, and here I am. And when it was skipping a beat, I asked, "What's for dinner?" And the old folks just shook their heads. The old man hid his smile behind a very thick hand as mother got dinner on the table. After dinner, I went upstairs to sleep the day away while my father took care of my broken sled. And I slept all afternoon and through the entire night, only to waken in the morning when I heard my mother rattling pans downstairs. There really is no place like home. It's not the place or the house or anything else. It's the people that make your life, that make your home. It was nice feeling to lie in bed, listening to all the sounds both inside and outside the house. I was sore all over, but felt as if I had just conquered the world. The aches, the pains, and the dangers were well worth the memory. I knew the misery, the icy water, the fear, the polar bears, and my trip would soon be forgotten, only to be replaced by memories of the beauty of the land and the animal life I had encountered. The sunrise and sunsets would also be forever etched in my mind. All that would remain is the beauty of that solitary soul-searching walk. I think that my young life so far, although very haphazard, did free me from blind adherence that had become the status quo that had settled or defeated too many. I was living freely, doing what I like to do, which filled my being with happiness. I was recklessly following my dreams and walking with blind trust, faith in my ancestors, and pride in my innate ability to find my own way back. Back to a time that was helped shape my future. These are heights of experiences, layers of dream time, roads and paths to land I may never see again. But the journey will float somewhere in the back of my wandering mind. I will not mourn those lost highways, but share them with those I cherish. And those memories will give me warmth when life begins to fade. I'm about there now. I can't imagine lying in bed in old age, regretting the things that I did or didn't do. Instead, I'll tell my future grandchildren. They will know what it is to follow their hearts. Survival is not a destination. Security does not exist in nature. It is in the doing. It is all about the journey struggle. I know there will be a huge price to pay for that. But if you have strong resolve, the rewards are well worth the risk. That's just part of my book, and that's what all I say about my journey. I can't walk much these days. Okay.
So Joe, if you just want to quick, maybe do a quick story and Wayne up after the break, okay? We're about halfway.
Thank you, Alice. That brought up some nice memories of things that happened in my life of a similar nature to yours. Not involving polar bears, obviously, but nevertheless, it was nice to hear and look forward to your book. I don't know if all of you are like me. Well, I find it kind of close in here.
It is.
And what we're going to do, rather than get Wayne up right now, I was told you need a short story from me, and it'll be short, and then we'll take a break and get a bit of fresh air or something or other to relax. But yeah, I guess it's a nice little story. My brother Jim is, what is he? About 10 years younger than me, I guess.
75.
How many?
75.
75. He was 11 years younger than me. Okay, thank you. Anyway, brother Chris and I, there are only 3 of us left in the family, and I'm the elder. I have a brother Jim who lives in Nova Scotia, and a sister Marjorie, who is basically the same age but an adopted sister. And she lives in Happy Valley Gooseback. And Chris and I were always running around in the woods trying to get into some kind of mischief or other. And one morning, Alex's mom came over to the house early in the morning, which I guess was a little unusual. I mean, we were back and forth all the time anyway, but usually it was later in the day. Anyway, Chris and I were told to get out of the house, that something was going to happen today, that we didn't have any business being around and seeing what was going on. Okay, well, we were glad to take off in the woods and grabbed an axe. We didn't have any guns, weren't allowed them yet, had a bow and arrow, and took off, and I guess we were gone almost sometime in the afternoon. Getting hungry time anyway. Came back home to get something to eat. Went in the house. What's that sound? A baby. There was a baby in the house, a new baby. And we didn't understand what was going on. So your mom was there. She assisted in the delivery of Brother Jim. And of course, Chris and I, well, we wanted to know where this creature came from. We didn't know. Anyway, it was explained to us by, I think, your mother, because Mom was resting in bed. She used to say that in some way she didn't mind having a baby. She had 10, because every one that was born, she had a 3-day break. It's her words. Anyway, she was resting, and Aunt Maggie said, because either Chris or Roy said, where did the baby come from? And your mother said, we got him in a rotten stump. That was the story. We didn't know the difference. So I said, Chris, grab an axe. We're back in the woods again, see if we can find a rotten stump. Well, I said, for heaven's sake, be careful. We don't want to cut them when we're chopping them up. Anyway, that was a great, not learning experience. We didn't learn anything. What was the difference anyway? And of course, later on, when you reflect upon those kind of things, it's a good laugh. Anyway, what we're going to do now, we're going to hear from Wayne shortly, and we're going to take about a 15-minute or so break.
Yeah.
And you can get some fresh air or do whatever you got to do. And we will reconvene and carry on. And I got a lot of them. Some I forget, others I don't. But I remember one from the North Coast, Makovic and Hopedale particularly, about the marriage of modern and traditional knowledge and technology. Ted Anderson, whom you remember, and Mr. Flowers, Chesley, you remember him. Brothers-in-law, I guess they were, I think.
Yeah.
They decided to go on a caribou hunt quite a few years ago, up to Big Bay, and they outfitted, I guess they probably stayed there a couple of nights, and managed to harvest the caribou that they wanted, and they started home. Beautiful day in early spring, probably April, I guess. There were still lots of ice along the coast, as there traditionally is, or before warming anyway. And they were traveling out pretty close to the Shin Valley, having a great day, bright sunny day. And all of a sudden, Ted Anderson's, as they had stopped in Hopedale, had a night there, left Uncle Chesley's caribou, and he traveled on with Ted to give him a hand to get down to Makovic. And all of a sudden, Ted's snowmobile brought up a stand, seized up, but he didn't know what seized. So anyway, they got looking, two of them, and what happened was, this is the older machine, and the little chain case had a hole with a rubber plug in it, where you inserted oil to oil the chain. Well, apparently the plug decided to fall out somewhere along the way. And of course, the oil flicked out, until there wasn't enough to run the thing properly, and she seized up. Well, says Ted, I guess we're gonna have to leave this one here, and you're gonna have to tow the Comedic with the caribou, and me on top of the caribou again. And Uncle Ches said, well, hang on now, maybe not. And with that, he stood up on the seat of his snowmobile. He didn't have any spy glasses, but they were close enough to the edge of the ice to see anyway. And he stood there for a couple of minutes looking around out towards where the water was. And yes, sir, there was a seal sleeping on the edge of the ice. Well, he had his rifle. So he said, Ted, you stay here with the snow machine now. I'm gonna go out and see what I can do with this seal. So he did. Walked out, by and by. He was close enough and shot the seal. Came back, started up the snowmobile, went out, tied a rope on, and hauled the seal back next to the Comedic. And Ted said, what are you doing? He said, I'm solving your problem. I'm gonna fix that machine for you. And Ted said, how are you gonna do that? He said, you wait now, I'll show you. So he started skinning the seal. And there was probably 1.5 inches, 2 inches of fat on the seal, as there usually is. And what he did was, he shaved off a piece, I don't know, maybe that square of fat, put it on the Comedic, cut it up in chunks like you would pork scrunchions if you're frying fish or caribou or whatever. And he started poking it in the hole. Filled the chain case up, started the machine, gone. No more to it than that. There was one little hitch later on, and Uncle Ches never knew about it, but Ted did, because when they got to Makovic, Ted parked his snowmobile fairly close to his wife's clothesline. You can imagine what 2 or 3 pounds of seal fat rendering in a chain case, might smell like after 2 or 3 weeks. Ted, get the snowmobile out of here. It's the last thing you heard. Anyway, that's my story about modern and traditional technology. Ted tells the story much better than that. I can't use some of the things he said. Okay, our final speaker for the evening, other than myself, I guess, is a gentleman who has done some travel in his work and in his lifetime and in his interests. It's Wayne Broomfield. And Wayne is a voyageur, adventurer, globetrotter, and is seeking nature's truth. Wayne has traveled from the North Pole to the South Pole, living life to the fullest. A native Indigenous spirit from the remote area of northern Labrador, Canada, Wayne grew up in Makkovik alongside the Great Atlantic Ocean, also known as the Labrador Sea. His people and his culture come from the LSPU, which means our beautiful land, and beautiful it is, and big. Wayne, just a personal note, I've never done the travels that you talk about here, but my touch of the North Pole is a sleeping bag that Bill Smith, the late Bill Smith, took with him. He had flown there for 3 days with Air Labrador, I guess, a long time ago, and didn't need the sleeping bag anymore. He said, it's yours. So that's my thing to do with the North Pole. Anyway, back to Wayne. In 2017, Antarctica called Wayne, and he answered. One of the few Inuit people to migrate between the Earth's poles, Wayne has had the pleasure of serving other adventure enthusiasts in Antarctica. His favorite experiences include being frantically chased by polar bears. You had that experience, Alex. Witnessing polar bear cubs dig their way out of their den, and watching the seals, whales, and other sea creatures play in the ice-locked waters of the poles. An advocate for the planet, sustainability, and Mother Nature herself, Wayne has participated in movies with National Geographic, photo sessions of the Great North and South, as well as sharing stories and adventures with guests who love to listen to his uncommon tales. It's my pleasure, Wayne. Wayne Broomfield.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks to everyone for coming out, people online watching. Very nice to meet you, and it's an honor to be on the stage with two Labrador legends for sure. I never ever thought I'd be up here amongst gentlemen such as these. And some of my colleagues here, Paul, Dave, and I've been working in the cruise ship industry for a long time. And this year I've had the pleasure of bringing my partner on to be a part of that. Jen, and she's here, and yeah, she fell in love with that part of work that I do. And I've had lots of encounters with polar bears over the years, and I thought I'd share a couple of stories with you. I used to manage the Tongat Mountains Base Camp and Research Station for 4 years before getting a job with Parks Canada for 1 year, and 1 year was enough. But one morning I woke up, we were doing some work at the base camp. The electric fence part of it was taken down, and the cook said that we have a bear walking along the fence. We've had lots of encounters with polar bears, and nothing new. And most people are afraid of polar bears, but 90% of the time, bears are afraid of you. And you can allow a bear to walk through this room, and he would just continue on. So anyway, this bear was walking along the fence. We had a big section taken down. So I went out, as I normally do, grab a couple of rocks, just bang on the rocks and yell at the bear, and the bear would normally go away. But this one time, and as Inuit, so I'm in Inuk, so just for your, Inuk is one, Inuk is two, and as a collective, we are all Inuit. And, you know, you learn growing up how to read wildlife, how to respect wildlife. And the last thing we want to ever do is put anything down without putting it to good use. And especially with polar bears, you know, you don't want to kill a polar bear by no means. So anyway, this bear was coming along the fence. I went out and I was about maybe 100 feet away from the building, and I just grabbed two rocks and I just started banging on the rocks and yelling like, "F off, bear, go away, go away." And he just took one look at me, and he put his head down, claws like that, and that's, do you say never run? But yeah. So I turned around and started hightailing it towards the building. Looking back, this bear was catching on me. Everyone up in the window was watching. I guess they figured they'd seen the last of me. So I was coming around the corner of the building, probably about here to this door right here. And he was probably about this distance away from me. I could just hear his claws digging in the ground. The gravel just flicking. And I get to the corner of the building, go up the stairs, and he's at the bottom of the stairs. So he was determined that he was going to have me. And I basically opened the door opened out. I opened the door enough to squeeze myself in, and before I even could close it, he was on the door. And he basically shut the door behind me. So that was pretty intense. But I guess the year before that, and again with Inuit and wildlife, again we have a lot of respect for the wildlife. And the year before at base camp, we had a mother and a cub show up. The mother was very frail, very sick, and she wasn't doing well. And her cub was fairly big, so we took all, and we had guests into camp. So I brought all the guests in a room like this here, and I told them that they could all, and we had the Inuit elders there with us, and we told the guests that you can come in to the meeting, but you're not allowed to partake in the conversation. I said this will be a conversation between us and the elders. So we went at a whole discussion about, well, maybe this bear was just at her end. And she came into camp and wanted us to put her down. And then, because she basically came in and laid down right beside camp and she couldn't get up. And it was very, very hard to see. And then the whole discussion about, well, what do we do with the bear, the cub? Well, again, this went on for a long time about, well, if we kill the mom, then we have to kill the cub. And so then there was back and forth. And we finally decided that, the few elders spoke up and said that we think that the cub is big enough that it'll survive on its own. At least let's give it the chance to. So then that was the decision made about, okay, so I told all the guests that we're going to get you out for the day, get you up into beautiful North Arm, and you can spend the day up there and we will deal with the bear. So I kept 3 of my bear guards back, and we would go up to the bear. The cub would get up and sort of walk around, and then she would go further and further away from her mother. And we said eventually she will just go and probably not come back. So anyway, for a long time, later that afternoon, the cub was gone for a while. So I had one of the bear guards sitting up on the mound watching for the bear and the cub in the distance. And 2 of us went up and we were back and forth on the radios, like, no, I can't see the cub. So then, we put the mom down. So then the big rush then was to get the mom out of there before the cub came back. So I got the helicopter in, hooked her up to the slings and picked her up. And when she picked her up, I got her blood all over me, which is something you don't want. So anyway, we got to Mom and we flew her out to an island. And about 2 hours later, the cub came back. And this story gets a bit sad, but it's, you know, it's a true story, crazy story. And again, all comes down to respect of the wildlife, the bears. And anyway, the cub was always looking for his mom. And she sat there for 4 days crying. It was the saddest thing you could ever hear. And anyway, finally the cub left. Her scent is so strong that she actually went in the water, followed the scent out to the island. And we never seen her again after that. So next year was the year I got chased by that bear. So the cubs always remember their path from the mom, and that cub will never forget where her mom was gone, and she came back. And as soon as that cub seen me, she probably still recognized, as much as I scrubbed myself, and she probably still recognized that scent on me, and it was like right away, because of all my encounters with bears over the years, I've never ever seen that happen. And I've had bears walk within 20 feet of me, and again, no problem at all. But as soon as that one seen me, it was instant. It was just, and there was no second thought. So again, with mothers and cubs, they usually tend to kick out their cubs between 2.5 to 3 years. That's when the mom will get rid of the cub and they'll have to fend for themselves. So anyway, that's the story of being chased by a bear, of one that we felt that it was the same cub from the year before. And again, their scents are so strong, and that's how they get their seals in the holes. They smell them through the ice. You see those infamous shots of a polar bear pouncing down through the ice, is that they actually smell the seals under the ice. So their scent is very strong. So again, that was a story at the base camp of dealing with a bear that everyone says was the one that we knew me from the year before. So that's one story. The second very quick one, I know we're on time, I'll just very quick, is that again, we get a lot of tourists up there that really don't want anything to do with having an Inuit guide. And we had this one particular group, they got dropped off by plane in the park. It was a group out of the States. And again, they didn't want nothing to do with having any Indigenous guides with them. And so we said, okay, that's your prerogative, but you have to hike at least 10 kilometers inland when you get dropped off there, because bears don't tend to go very far inland. They're more of a coastline looking for seals. So anyway, they got dropped off in Knockfuck Fjord, very famous spot for polar bears. And the float plane went ashore, dropped all these guys off, and there were 3 bears there up on the hill. I can picture it now. And so anyway, they said, well, great, we got bears, let's set up camp here. So they put their camp up on the shoreline, and they stayed there for 3 days watching these bears. But little did they know, these bears were watching them, observing their behavior. Polar bears are such intelligent animals. They'll, in the summer, they'll cover themselves in mud, roll around, camouflage themselves better. We've been at landings where we did the whole landing, get everyone up to leave, and the polar bear come up out of the grass beside us that we didn't even know was there. So they're very, very intelligent animals. So for 3 days, as those guys were there taking pictures of these bears, the bears were studying their behavior. And on the third night, the bear came in and grabbed one of them. They had a little bear fence, probably that high. That's useless. And he grabbed him on one side and dragged him out of his tent. And because they weren't, didn't have any Indigenous guides with them, they're not allowed to carry weapons. The Tongat Mountains National Park you have to be Indigenous to Nunavut or Nunavik in order to carry a weapon in that park. So all they had was flares. So anyway, he's obviously yelling because bear's dragging him away. And everyone gets up and starts shooting flares at this bear. And the bear let him go, runs away. And then they started going up to this gentleman that's obviously, in a lot of pain. And the bear decides to go back again. So the bear turns around, charges back at him, and grabs him on the other side and starts dragging him off again. And he had 3 flares left. They fired 2, and again the bear let him go. And the call went to Jasper, because all calls go to Jasper for any national park. And we got the call at 3 in the morning at base camp that we had an attack up in Notvok Fjord, and we knew right away what it was, and that they needed for us to go and get them. The weather was awful. We couldn't send a helicopter, and it's about a 10-hour boat ride to get up there. So we sent the boat, and they're frantic, on the phone with us. And later, the next day, was the only time we had a window to get the helicopter up there. So we flew up, landed. Of course, the sky was in rough shape. Everyone wanted to get on the helicopter, and we were like, no. And the bear was still there, and he wanted us to shoot the bear. I said, we're not shooting the bear, this is your problem. So we left the bear guard there with them until the boat could arrive, and then got this gentleman back to base camp. But the craziest thing about all that was that I could not get any support from the Newfoundland government to send a medevac up. They were like, nope, we don't deal with polar bear attacks. Nunavik is right alongside, because we shared a park. Went to Nunavik, and they said no first. So here I am with a dying guy at the base camp, and no one would send a medevac in to get him. So I finally made the decision to put him in our helicopter, and I called back to George River, and I said that the guy is on the way. If not, he's going to die. So they did, and he got there. They put him in a coma right away, sent him to Montreal, and he ended up surviving. He came back 2 years later, and the craziest thing is, his sleeping bag was tore up, full of blood. All his belongings were just burnt. And he was so upset with me because I destroyed his sleeping bag. Yeah. Yeah, he was just so mad that I had to destroy his sleeping bag. It was crazy. So he went back and visited the site. He wouldn't go ashore, but he wanted to go back and visit Notvok Fjord again. He didn't get off the boat. So anyway, 2 stories with polar bears and about Inuit and traditional knowledge and the respect that we have. And if you don't give that respect, bad things happen. So yeah, thank you.
He didn't thank you at all.
No, he didn't thank us at all. He was too upset about losing his sleeping bag. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Wayne. Not only entertaining, but educational as well. I appreciate that. I don't know what about you, but one of the things that I guess I thought about before, but it's always nice to have one's memory refreshed, that the Indigenous peoples of Labrador, the Inuit, Métis, or Southern Labrador Inuit now, all relied on the land, the rivers, in the case where I live, in the interior, the sea ice, the sea itself, and we are all shared back then the same values, the same effort it took, and the knowledge needed to survive and be comfortable in that kind of a land. As I remember, I don't know who I was telling this to today, but I know once in my life at Churchill Falls, Alec, years ago, hunting caribou. I woke up in the morning and it was 50 degrees below zero. Now, that'll wake you up in a hurry. You need a hot drink right away. And it was so cold that it was really uncomfortable trying to hunt caribou and the rest of it, so we didn't bother with it. But there are so many stories about the land and the effort it took to survive there. And I think one of the things that I find to be clearly stated was that the Europeans who came, the Scotsmen, the Irish, the English, Norwegians, whoever they were, who came to Labrador, probably would not have survived. Certainly they would not have survived comfortably without marriage with the Labrador Indigenous woman. And to me, that speaks volumes. But anyway, I shouldn't be so philosophical on this. The night is almost over, I guess, is it?
Well,
Or
I
do you need
don't
to-
know if we can hear Amelia's drum story. I think we have time for maybe Amelia's drum story. She was gonna do something with her drum, remember? Make us cry. She was gonna make us cry. We do have time.
If you like, I can tell another short story.
Yeah, sure.
And we have Amelia come up and
Yeah.
provide some drumming.
Lovely.
Okay, all right. Father, I guess he was 26, 27 years old, single man, and with a girlfriend, Elizabeth Blake, who eventually became my mother, of course, his wife. He went into the country by himself, by canoe, paddled up the river, Grand River we called it, Mississippi now, or Churchill. And all by himself. He was gone for 6 months, had the best return on his trapping work that he had ever had. And I guess the prices for once happened to be reasonable. And he was 6 months, almost had to learn how to talk again. He said when he got home, never saw a soul. Never saw an Indian, never saw anyone, no one to speak to. And I guess you get kind of tired of talking to yourself, like after a while. So he obviously didn't converse that much. But on his way up through the Mooney Rapids and the Devil's Hole, he ran into problems. He had a heavy load, because he was going to be there 6 months, which meant a heavily loaded canoe. By himself, no one else ran the helm. And he had camped just a little bit below shore where we're heading. And had a nice quiet evening, had supper, fish that he had caught in the river. And loaded up the canoe the next morning, nice sunny day, and started up through to get through the Devil's Hole in the Mooney Rapids, hopefully make it to Winnacataway Lake that evening. Well, he had to paddle across the river first to get to the quieter water, which he did, and tied the tracking rope onto his canoe and was pulling it up through as best he could. And with one person, you can't pull and track at the same time, obviously. So he was on the rope, and I guess he had put the wrong piece on. It was an older piece of rope. And when he got into the heavy going, it broke. Well, here he is, maybe 125 miles from home. Didn't even have a hat on. He was working so hard. He had a shirt, pants, boots, and that was about it. Canoe going down through, you know what the rapids are like. going down through the rapids. And all they had was this pocket knife, and we all used to carry one of them. And a box of matches, his pipe, and a lump of beaver tobacco, probably the size of that little microphone here. Oh, what am I gonna do? Canoe was gone out of sight then. And he sat down, lit a pipe, had a smoke. And I guess worked up nerve to pick up his bit of rope that he had and start back down river to walk home. That's all he could do. And he walked for an hour or so, I guess, not feeling very good. This, he thought, was his last chance to have a nice income before he got married and he and mother could start a family. And anyone who canoes or reads a book or anything else will know what a backetty is. Usually a little point of land stuck out in the water, twirling and around in a circular fashion. And he came to this point, it was, I don't know, probably that high. And he came to this point, he had to walk 15 or 20 feet up over to get to the other side of it. And when he got to the other side, he looked down in his canoe. Well, he was in the country for 6 months after that. Never saw a soul, but had the best return financially on his work that he ever had in his life up to that point. And just to illustrate for you, the Hudson Bay Company, it's a sin to say it, I guess, but I'm almost glad they're bankrupt. It was that bad. They traditionally, every winter, and Dave knows about this and other people knows about it, the price of fur automatically dropped about 10 days before the first trappers got there. I mean, down to 50% value and maybe less. Anyway, a gentleman by the name of John Groves, Groves's Point, trapped at a place called Goose Brook, and you remember that, Patty, and did really well one particular year. He had a nice harvest of fur, fox and some cats, even muskrats. They were worth $1 each. The red ones, $2 for the black ones. Anyway, but he had 2 silver foxes, and they were almost priceless then, I guess. Anyway, he came home, and he was well enough off that he saved his fur and went trapping again the next winter and didn't catch any more silver foxes, but he did well. And when he got a chance that summer, he got aboard the coastal boat, went to Montreal, traded his furs. Each silver fox was worth $1,000. Back in the 20s and 30s, a lot of money. And the 2 years of harvest was enough to set him up as a trader for the rest of his life. At Groves's Point. I don't know what he would have got at the Hudson Bay Company, but he certainly got to set up a trade. Anyway, that's some of the conditions. There were hardships, but oh my Lord, there were wonderful, glorious times as well. I mean, just lie down in the snow and the northern lights seem to be as low as these. You can almost hear them. It's that clear. And a whole bunch of stuff that northern people, well, I guess they fall in love with it, certainly respect it and treasure it for the rest of their lives. And It's a big land, it's a good land, it's a good place to be. And now we'll hear from our favorite drummer.
Hello. I had a beautiful time at the break seeing who else is hiding in the room here. And I did promise I'm going to make you cry. So, what I was going to talk about was residential schools, both in Canada and the US. But as was mentioned earlier, the last one in Labrador didn't close till 1980. And the last one in Canada didn't close till I think 1996 in Saskatchewan. So people my age and even younger attended residential school in this country. In my family, my great-grandfather attended in Montana in the 1890s, Métis school for boys. And even then there was the delineation as to who your parents were. If you had Métis or Indigenous of any kind, father versus mother. And so there was a separate list of the Métis boys with white fathers, that they were treated different. That's not okay, but it is the sign of the times. And then luckily my grandmother didn't have to go to residential school because she had a white mother. When my great-grandfather left residential school, they told me he was really good with numbers and he needed to go out east and find himself a wife. So he needed to go to business college, find himself a wife, because there were no non-Indigenous women in that part of Montana at that time to marry. But that means my grandmother got to go to regular school. Yet every year they had her get up in front of the class and say, "Come up here, Gertrude, and explain to everybody why you're so dark." So there's so many things that come with this, and I could go on and on about residential schools. The family of Marie Mason Potts, which is where I get my chin tattoo from, she went to Carlisle residential school in Pennsylvania, which is one of the huge ones. And yet she came out later and became one of the founders of the American Indian Press Association in the United States, running a paper called Smoke Signals out of Sacramento, California. Beautiful people, beautiful resilience, and yet we shouldn't be forced to have so much resilience. The song I'm going to sing is called Baby, and it's originally by Eastern Owl, a local group here in St. John's. And it uses the different words, Indigenous words for the word baby. And we are talking about children being scooped up. And I do want to add real quick, when I first moved here about 12, 13 years ago and started working with the Native Friendship Center at that time, I've moved on to other things now. But Them Days magazine came down from Labrador and wanted to talk to elders here in St. John's, Inuit elders, about their memories of growing up in Labrador. And the young man interviewing them was asking, what was it like with holidays and Christmas and Easter and all these sorts of things? They could tell what it was like as an adult. And we realized there was a piece missing where no one was talking about what it was like as a kid. They would have still been at school. They weren't at home with their family to celebrate. So the memories would be before they went to the school or after they came out of the school. And so I'm going to bring this song, Baby. Eastern Owl does encourage people to sing this song and use different words for Indigenous words for baby. So tonight I'm going to use Megama, so where's Mijiwajij for baby. In Ninututut, it's Nutagak. And in Inuaman, which is Namashish Shashila dialects, it's Washi. Weheya Mijiwajij, Mijiwajij, Weheya Mijiwajij, Mijiwajij. Baby, I'm scared. What happened today? A man dressed in black came and took you away. And Baby, I know it's cold in that big schoolhouse. I wanna hold you, but they just won't let you out. Way out, New Tagak. Way, New Tagak. Don't forget about me and remember your name. I wrote you this song. I hope that it keeps you strong. Way out, Washi. Way, Washi. Way out, New Tagak. Way, Midiwati. Tahoe.
So, is that it? We keep going. I guess it just remains now for me on behalf of the organizers to thank all of you for being here tonight and hope that you enjoyed the stories you heard and now the song that you heard, and appreciate the difference in perhaps growing up with certainly the lifestyle of downtown St. John's compared to downtown Labrador, I guess. It's a big land and we have good reason to call it that. I worked on the low-level jet training program back in the 80s. And we set aside 100,000 square kilometers of land over which the jet fighters could train. And ladies and gentlemen, when they arrived, their lowest elevation was 300 feet above the nearest object. 2 weeks later, before they went home, they were down to 100 feet. So it obviously, the startle effect of that was quite dramatic, not only on the animals and the birds and probably the fish, I don't know, but certainly on the people as well. But what I found amusing is I didn't have that much knowledge about Europe, where these people came from, what the country was like, or how many people were there. But 100,000 square kilometer training area was larger than most of the countries that these people came from, with 80 and 90 million people. I found it crowded in Happy Valley now with a population of 7,000, never mind millions. But anyway, it's a big land, it's a glorious land for those of us who live there, have grown up there, and we'll probably end up passing on there, Alec. I certainly don't plan on going anywhere else, but hey, we shouldn't have morbid stuff tonight. This is a nice, friendly, happy evening. Glad you've been here. I'm glad to have been your host. And I guess there's a couple of more evenings yet where we're going to be around. And if people want to come back, there's lots of more stories to tell and other things to share. So please, hopefully you enjoyed the evening, and we'll hopefully see some of you at least tomorrow or the next day. Thanks for